Hello and welcome to this webcast with Extreme Networks hosted by DURSEC. My name is Patrick. I'm with DURSEC. I'm responsible for all the marketing communications and setting this kind of stuff up for our customers to look at. Today we've got a great presentation that aligns really well with what DURSEC does. We've been in business since 2001 as a value-added reseller of security, hardware, software, and network products. Big part of our customer portfolio, which ties into today's topic, is K-12 EDU school districts. And if you're listening in today or in the future, you maybe represent one of the districts we work with or a school system that we'd love to do business with in the future. But that's a big part of our customer portfolio. On the line with us is Bob Nilsson from Extreme Networks, and I'm going to hand it off to him in just a second. A couple of housekeeping notes to just touch on. If you're watching this live or if you're watching it at a later date recorded, there's a overview attachment in the attachments tab up there. It's just a PDF that's an overview of a K-12 product overview from Extreme Networks. If you have any questions, you can submit those in the questions tab. And of course, if you're watching this at a later date recorded, just email us your questions directly. Our contact info is going to be on the slides. You can submit anything that may come to mind as you watch that. We have a couple of poll questions that will go out too, but obviously if you're watching that in recorded mode, send us your feedback on that as well if you'd like. So with that in mind, I'm going to get this started. This is a series of webcasts we're doing with Extreme. And again, Bob Nilsson's on the line, and today's topic is K-12 environments with Extreme. And Bob, take it away.
Oh, thanks a lot, Patrick. And good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us this morning. This is definitely an interesting time for education. There's lots of remarkable innovation taking place, but also major challenges. Tremendous amount of pressure being put on schools and educators. Over the last year, a number of international surveys have placed our U.S. education system surprisingly low in the pack. The piece of the program for international student assessment, which tests 15-year-old students worldwide, put the U.S. overall at 36, and that's actually below the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development average, the OECD average of the 65 countries in every category. Another survey, the Learning Curve, developed by the Economist Intelligence Unit, has us, the U.S., at 17th in overall educational performance. So schools, teachers, CIOs absolutely feel the pressure. And education is one of those fields where there's no one that doesn't have an opinion. The parents, the politicians, administrator, everybody feels they're an expert on education, so we get lots of advice. But today we'll talk about some of the innovations taking place and how important a solid network infrastructure is for success. This is the agenda for the day, and I'll share our vision of where K-12 education is now and where it's headed, the impact of today's digital economy with digital transformation and the cross-industry megatrends, as well as the major trends in education itself. And what we do at Extreme Networks is keep up with our customers, both by conferences and everyday conversations, but also we run surveys fairly continuously, and I'll share what we're learning from those surveys. There's been some interest, so I'll also touch on the new E-rate order and how you can take advantage of the $1 billion a year that the federal government's providing there to improve the IT infrastructure for high-speed internet access. And finally, I will describe how Extreme Networks and our products fits into this and where to find additional resources. But first, this social media humor. I think it says how people, especially younger people, are communicating these days. This gives you a little glimpse as to our customer base. We've chosen a selection of K-12 and higher ed customers, how they blanket the country. Overall, we've got 1,400 school districts and 1,100 universities around the world. This digital economy is the world we're preparing students for, and it's the world where our schools operate in. Change is only accelerating. At Extreme Networks, we talk about delivering better connections, better experiences for everyone, and making your network a strategic asset. But this can only be achieved if you consider this new environment of digital transformation. And first, there's mobile. We found 70% of teenagers aged 13 to 17 have smartphones. Parents are providing the kids with mobile phones. There's a major switch to digital textbooks, and that, along with all of these, will put more and more stress on the network and the Wi-Fi network. So we feel the world is becoming mobile first, always connected, and it needs to be highly secure. Social fits in there as it becoming extremely important as well. 51%, majority of schools now use social media in the classroom. 81% of students participate in social networks. And here on the right, you can see we ran a survey recently, and we asked what social media networks teachers are using, and they're still on Facebook and Google+. The students are still on Facebook, but if you talk with the students, that's changing more and more these days. But anyway, again, it shouldn't be putting kids on social media networks shouldn't be at all a scary proposition, as long as you've got 100% visibility and control into all those activities that are taking place on the school network. Just to give you a glimpse as to how much data freely flowing over the internet every minute, on the left, that's showing the volumes of data in an internet minute of every day. Facebook users share over 2 million and 2.5 million pieces of content. Pinterest, there's 3,472 images posted every minute. I like to say if Facebook were a country, it would rank third. There are almost as many users on Facebook in a month as there are people living in India. So with that kind of data flowing, you could see how it's important to teach concepts of responsibility and digital citizenship. And that's an area, digital citizenship, is very important to Extreme Networks. Last week was Digital Citizenship Week. That's a part of the Connected Educator Month. We've done extensive blogging and joint blogging on the topic. And I invite you, if you get a chance, to take a look at the Huffington Post blogs that have been posted by our CMO, Vala Afshar. What we recommend is balancing teaching the concepts of digital citizenship, student responsibility, and giving the students freedom that's commensurate with their learnings. So as the students learn responsibility and demonstrate it, you can grant them access to more and more rights on the network. Now, our networks make it easy to grant that selective freedom to students who earn them. And as you know, everything on the internet today is recorded, so we really suggest that students go beyond the issue of just avoiding the bad posts, the weekend parties, but actually smart students can go further, use the web as a marketing tool, post as much positive information to put them in a very positive light. In other words, create a very positive digital footprint. So we say, it's your footprint, use it to your benefit. The cloud now makes it much easier to outsource everything that's not strategic, and we're seeing more and more school districts sending their data, most of their data, not all of it, to cloud destinations like the Amazon S3. 42% currently implementing cloud computing, but typically it's a hybrid infrastructure, and sending data to the cloud doesn't remove the need for high bandwidth infrastructure. In some sense, it creates more bandwidth needs. The video is stored up at the cloud. It needs to be transferred across the network. at very high rates. And the final megatrend I'll talk about today is growing use of apps for mobile devices. And interestingly, we found that the second most downloaded apps are education apps. I'll bet you can guess what the most popular type of app is, and in fact, games are the most popular app by about a factor of 2 to 1 over education. But at least education apps are second. As the summer vacation ended, this comic was posted, and what I'd like to point out, it's not all bad news. The student who asked the teacher if she'd been following her on Twitter, what she may not have realized, this student was microblogging all summer. So now to go and create an essay from the microblogs really won't be that difficult. She's halfway there. So the IT megatrends of social, mobile, cloud, and apps are all important in K-12 education. The network has to provide the bandwidth and connectivity for success in all those areas, as well as a right level of visibility and control for each student, device, application, and location in the campus. And indeed, that's what the Extreme Networks network products do for that. But now let's take a look at the next level down. And one of the most important issues facing school districts from a number of standpoints is online testing. In most cases, it's being driven by the state standards and testing to the state standards. Connecting students, either BYOD or one-on-one, as well as accommodating the full range of teacher and facility devices is also critical. And the IoT, or the Internet of Things, is bringing millions of new devices onto the network. Digital content, that's what's enabling the new and innovative styles of learning. And again, Wi-Fi and networking plays a key role with digital content. So overall, the goal educators are striving for is to be able to deliver personalized and connected learning. Now, let's pause and take a quick poll on online testing. What we'd like to do is find out what your plans are and have been for online testing. So we need to push that out there.
Right, that question was just pushed out, so we'll let everybody vote on that.
Okay. We'll just give a moment for that voting. And let's see, we'll
if we click on the votes tab right there and view the results, looks like 100% are coming in at B, planning to participate in statewide online testing.
Yeah, this looks like this is the year. Okay, great. So we'll talk about some things about getting ready for that. Doesn't look like anybody participated in the field test. That was an exciting time. We were involved in that. Okay, so it's coming quick. Great. Thank you all on that. Now, again, the reason online testing is so important is the move to state standards, which for a while, and in some cases still are, known as Common Core. But because Common Core became such a political hot potato, the standards now go by different names. I know of Arizona's College and Career Ready Standards, the Iowa Core. It was out in Nevada, and they call it the Nevada State Standards, which I don't think differ in any way from what used to be called the Common Core State Standards. There's Maryland, Alabama, Indiana, and Sunshine State Standards. But anyway, last year we did a survey of K-12 districts to see how ready they were at that point to handle online testing. And we see some of the results here. We asked whether school districts had started preparing for online testing. We found 80% had already started to prepare, but we also asked whether they thought their networks could handle online testing. And we found 73% were not very confident that the current network infrastructure could handle the capacity, and slightly better, but still 67% were not confident that the network could handle the security required for the online testing. So to help, we put together a whole set of resources for districts to use in preparing for the online testing. We did a webinar, which is available online. We did it jointly with PARC, one of the two testing consortia, but the information, I would say, also applies to those participating with the Smarter Balanced consortium. We put together a technology checklist and also created a readiness service that we can provide to any district that needs some extra help. In general, what we found, successful districts break the task of preparing into 5 areas. Make sure you've got the devices, that you understand how to put them in the right mode. With Chromebooks, for example, it's the kiosk mode. Probably most important, make sure you've got a network that can handle the capacity and the throughput and is reliable. Make sure the software is all up to date, the right revisions. The facilities is ready, and the staff and personnel are all ready. Now, perhaps most useful now that some of our customers have gone through the field testing is to learn from the district experiences, and we're sharing some of that. Several of our customers have already completed the field testing of the park testing, for example. And here you see a blog that was co-written with the Chelmsford Public Schools. Gives a nice summary and a detailed punch list on how to be successful. That picture you can see, that's an actual picture, so you can see one of the things they felt was important and improved to be was to have like the cheat sheets there ready to go with all the sites necessary, the URLs and the passwords, so every desk had all the information there. And on the right, it's kind of a summary of the top 4 recommendations they make after they went through it, the things that worked well for them. Communication was important, particularly prior to the testing. They needed to make sure, and it worked out well, if the network was ready. Then during the testing, they plugged into social media to find out who, since it was taking place across the country, who was experiencing problems, how they solved them, just to keep the finger on the pulse. And they had a specialized IT team. They called them park rangers. They had some fun with it. And that was like a SWAT team, a tactical team, just ready to go in case any issues came up. That team kept a close eye on the network traffic and flows. They also suggested things like disabling Java and Flash updates during the testing. They set up Proctor caching and a backup secondary save location with automatic mirroring because they wanted to be real sure that no test results could ever get lost. So let's try, Patrick, another poll test as we get into student devices. And this time, what we're looking for is where you're really concentrating, what student devices you're concentrating on over the next 5 years at your school. Which ones will make the impact moving forward? Are they iPads, netbooks, Chromebooks, PC or Windows laptops, MacBooks, or something else?
Okay, that question was just released.
Okay, again, we'll give a minute to see how sure. Results come in. Then we'll share some survey results that we took. Okay, I see some coming in now. Or is this the last one? Oh, no, I see.
So far, I'm seeing the majority being iPads, MacBooks.
Okay. Yep.
Vast majority.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Be interested if anybody's using Chromebooks out there, but I will talk about that because they are catching on in such a big way. So this is a survey from earlier this year. We asked about student devices and bring your own device BYOD programs. And we did find that the majority have or are planning a BYOD program, but we're surprised that still almost 30% have no plans or said they had no plans for BYOD. I've got to believe that's going to change as people realize that it's now easy to manage, and the demand will just keep going up for BYOD programs. Similar results on one-on-one programs. About 30% have no plans to offer one-on-one computing environment. So looking at what's happening with campus devices and the sorts of devices that the Wi-Fi network will need to be prepared for, we're seeing more and more wearable devices, including smartwatches, Fitbits, athletic trackers. And in classrooms, not sure I'd say it's prevalent yet, but we're seeing more of, are devices like GoPros, Google Glass, and virtual reality and augmented reality headgear. One research survey by Juniper Research said there'll be 13 million wearables in use this year, and that number is going to grow to 170 million within 3 years. So by the Internet of Things, IoT, that's referring to independent machines and devices that are programmed over the Internet and typically stream data back across the Internet. For education, for schools, typical devices would be small sensors, door locks. Location-based beacons are finding their way into the classroom, and those could be iBeacons or the new Bluetooth low-energy devices. Robots, drones, as I mentioned, wearables. Athletic teams are using football gear, IoT devices, and even advanced lighting. So the number of IoT devices could be literally hundreds of billions by 2020, according to IDC. So to make it, and of course the other issue with devices is to be careful of alert for rogue IT devices. We're getting more and more reports of students even bringing in access points, which obviously need to be detected and disabled. So to help with all that, we've published a solution white paper for BYOD called Bringing Order to Chaos of BYOD. And the guide talks about device profiling, onboarding process, automating the BYOD workflow, implementing policy, securing the end device, integration with MDM, mobile device management, integration with VDI, and future-proofing since BYOD is constantly changing. Now let me talk a little about Chromebooks in the classroom. Even if you're not using them now, I predict that you'll be considering that in the future. We're seeing it just sweep into classrooms. They already have 20% of the U.S. market, 5,000 school districts, and their usage has surpassed MacBooks, not iPads yet, but a sizable portion of our customer base is implementing Chromebooks. And the reasons for this, I guess, are fairly obvious. It's hard to beat that $250 price tag, and for that you can get some really good durability. The form factor is nice, and we're finding the school districts really do enjoy the Google Apps for Education software. The only issues we've seen as we talk with our customers are some got off to not a bad start, but less optimal. They tried some of the very cheap models and found they weren't as durable as needed in classrooms, but now that problem's gone away. And the other thing to be aware of is these are basically diskless systems. They have to phone home every day that they're turned on, and that can take people by surprise. Once in a while, Google will send out a new device code for the Chromebooks as they come on, and the network has to realize that they're still Chromebooks and give them access to everything they're supposed to have access to. So not a problem, but you have to be aware of it. So like in other areas, we wanted to find out more about how customers were doing. So we did conduct a survey, and here's some of the things we learned from our Chromebooks survey. First of all, only 15% said they would not use Chromebooks, so 85% definitely considering it, and who knows, that might grow. We found they're used actually in all grades, but most often in grades 6 through 8. They're used the least in the lowest grades, and that's where tablets still have a very, very strong role. The teachers really like the idea they can say lids down, lids up, and get full attention at the front of the room. Now, as we talk to districts, many of them that hadn't implemented Chromebooks yet were asking about things like, should we sell damage insurance to students? But what we found in the survey was that most districts don't offer that. Very few offer damage insurance, and it hasn't been a problem. The other big question was, should we ask the students to return the devices at graduation, or should we let them buy the devices? And we found, again, almost all districts require the Chromebooks be returned, just like textbooks are returned. Basically, we found all our customers who had implemented a Chromebook program did it successfully. Very few problems. It's quite straightforward. But with the network, only 68% feel confident their current Wi-Fi network can handle their Chromebook requirements. So it does come back to having a very strong Wi-Fi network that you're totally confident in. Google Glass usage is definitely growing in both K-12 and higher education. Earlier this month, I was down in Orlando at the EDUCAUSE conference, and I have to report that Glass was in strong evidence there. There were several sessions dedicated to using Glass for education. Very interesting. And what we did, we put together a slide share of 14 ways that Glass is currently being used in education. So you can go to slideshare.com or Huffington Post and look for the Vala Afshar posting. But we worked with Brian Rellinger and a couple others. Brian is the CIO, very innovative fellow at Ohio Wesleyan University. He's one of the 50 most social CIOs in education. And we also worked with Melissa Wu, CIO at University of Oregon, and Stephen DeFilippo, CIO at Cecil College. And in that slide share, you can see some of the uses pulled out here, but in the slide share, we link to the actual uses of them, so you can see how successful they've been already. Now, we were talking about this at a session, and a professor, Andrew Perlman, a Suffolk law professor, came up to us afterwards, and he said, I use Glass in my classroom. What I found, he said, is that some of my students were a little timid about speaking up in class, so it was an easy thing to try. I arranged for these students to tweet or text questions to me. And so the questions come in, and you can see, if you can see it in the upper right on the screen, the questions appear privately to him, and he can choose to answer them, go into detail, and avoid any issues there. If you're more interested in this, he's actually posted a video of this on his Google Plus page, Andrew Perlman. And being a law professor, you can imagine how ultimately Glass could be used by trial lawyers to get messages in or bring up information during a trial. Now, even slightly more futuristic than Google Glass for the classroom is using drones for education, and a number of educators have plunged in there. In some cases, they're getting ahead of the FAA in terms of regulations. That's less of a problem for K-12, but some publicly public high universities, the laws get interesting, challenging. But here we put together another slide share with Brian Rellinger again, who's been trying it out, of 10 uses of drones in higher education. And we also worked with David Smallin at Hamilton College, Kevin Lynch at Colgate, they've jumped out in front, and Melissa Wu. So again, you can find this on slideshare.com or check out the Huffington Post blog. Getting more and more attention. And you just go back. Oh, no, let me go forward. One of the big benefits, of course, is that drones can take fantastic pictures across the campus at sporting events, sites that are studying wildlife areas, architecture. But there's also the aspect, since drones are becoming so popular and important, of actually teaching courses on designing and building drones. That's a shot, that's Brian there on the OSU campus learning how to fly a drone when it first came in. Now, of all these topics and trends, the one that may ultimately have the most profound impact on education is virtual and augmented reality. Some of the products here include Oculus Rift and Magic Leap. Now, those can be more expensive, but there are actually very simple ways to get started with virtual reality. There are devices that will hold a smartphone or a tablet, and there are apps to run, so you can actually use a smartphone or a tablet for fully immersive virtual reality. And these headgear, we'll call it, are as low as $50 from people like Dervis Dive and Air VR. So for $50, you get a device and you can insert your smartphone, and I found that there's a tremendous amount of free Apple and Android software available for 3D fully immersive virtual reality. Now, just yesterday, there was a great article on Huffington Post by Rob Furman. He's the principal at South Park Elementary in Pennsylvania, and he talks about how virtual reality will help teachers on snow days and blizzard days. He's projecting in the future, maybe 5 years out, when students are stranded at home, they'll simply put on their VR headsets and can have a full day of class with the teacher in the room, in the virtual room with them. His point is the teacher really knows best about guiding the students, so keep the teacher involved, whether locally or remotely. And of course, while they're involved in the virtual reality teaching, they can take field trips to real places, as well as he brings up, to virtual places like Minecraft, where they can tune up their math skills. So exciting things happening there. A few words on MOOCs, massive open online courses. The major MOOC providers are edX, the MIT Harvard Alliance, Coursera, Udacity, and I'd put Khan Academy in this category. The whole MOOC area got tremendous hype last year. And so, again, to learn more about it, we ran a survey. And first we asked about regular, limited, not massive, online courses. And we found 74% of schools, in this case we were concentrating on higher education, so 74% of the schools already offer online classes today, and 90% of schools plan to offer online courses in the next 3 years. But only 13% of schools were offering MOOCs. Now, fast forward to this year, and it seems the MOOC revolution has fizzled, to say the least. And the issue has been course completion. Typically, only half of those who sign up watch even one lecture, and only 4% is the statistic, stay long enough to complete the course. So What we'd add is, while it's not a universal solution that's going to revolutionize teaching, but MOOCs definitely do have a place, have a long-term home, and it involves things like professional development, technical training, continuing education, and in K-12, they're being used for optional courses, remedial courses, and advanced placement, places where the student has a definite motivation to complete the course on their own. At Extreme Networks, we offer 4 MOOCs. We feel it's important to our mission to help educate the market. It also helps get feedback for our regular training course content. We wanted to keep ahead of the major trends, and it's a chance to partner with some of our education customers. So you can see we partner with the customers at the bottom of the slide there. What our courses are, and they're available to anyone: data center basics, data network fundamentals, wireless LAN fundamentals, and security concepts. And this year we're adding 2 new MOOC partners, especially for K-12, in the Kentucky Department of Education and West Virginia Department of Education. So our MOOC program is growing. Digital badges, interesting topic, and it relates to MOOCs in that it's an emerging way to recognize MOOC completion. You get a digital badge when you complete a MOOC course successfully. But badges are great for many other things as well. The short definition of a digital badge is a validated indicator of accomplishment. The topic, the whole concept accelerated last year when Mozilla Open Badges developed a common open system called OBI, for Open Badge Initiative, for representing and displaying badges across the web and social media. So complying with the standard, you can post your badge on LinkedIn or even Facebook, and it's validated. It has a meaning, and you can share it. The work of the OBI, Mozilla Open Badges, that was based on a grant from the MacArthur Foundation. And again, down at EDUCAUSE, it proved to be a very, very hot topic. And you can see we've written about 5 different blogs on the different aspects of digital badges. The concept has come up. You can see it there. Will digital badges replace resumes and diplomas? So we asked about that. We did a survey, and we had a phenomenal response. 2,000 people responded to our survey. And it looks like the sense is that 60% do believe over time digital badges could replace diplomas or certificates. That breaks down. 21% felt they'd actually replace completely, but 40% feel it'll be a combination of digital badges, diplomas, and course certificates. So many of these aspects that I've talked about are elements or markers for what Clayton Christensen, who spoke at EDUCAUSE, what he calls disruptive innovation. And this has been a very hot topic this year, particularly higher education. Well, higher education, because it's so expensive and results are viewed as being mixed, will it be totally disrupted in the short term or long term future? So Christensen's theory of disruptive innovation, he traces how businesses have been disrupted in a number of industries, including computer industry, mainframes, giving way to minis, giving way to PCs, the steel industry and the cell phone industry, where you had Nokia, and then BlackBerry came in, and the iPhone came in, and now the Android may be taking over. But in each of the cases he looks at, there's what he calls a technological core, and that's used by new market entrants, typically to sell a new version of a product similar to an existing one, but it doesn't quite meet the standards of the established market. When the PC came out, it was initially dismissed as a toy, no practical use in industry. Maybe you could use it at home. And then what happens is gradually the technological core that it's built on gets better and better, and before the established market players realize it, their product no longer competes. Now, what Christensen has seen are some markers for disruption in education, possibly built around the online providers. Right now, online courses, they're reaching a broad audience, but they're not really viewed as competitive with the on-campus or in-class experience. But that could be changing.
Hey, Bob, it's Patrick here. I hate to interrupt. We have, be respectful of everybody's time. We have about 4 minutes left. I want to know if you want to take an opportunity here to answer. We had a couple of questions that were submitted, and get close to wrapping up here and answer those couple of questions. Let's see. One here is, do you recommend using a single SSID for networks throughout a building?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because with extreme networks and our network management, you actually have a choice. The different types of networks you'd want in your school might be the faculty network, the student network, and a guest network. And there are pros and cons of setting up all that on one SSID versus setting it up on multiple SSIDs. But you do have that choice. Almost uniquely in the industry, you could use one SSID throughout the building and just set different parameters depending on who the person is logging in, if it were a guest or a faculty or a student.
Okay. And the other question that was submitted here was, what product does Extreme Networks offer for managing BYOD? And our sales guys at DURSEC get this question all the time.
Okay, yeah. For managing BYOD, the product we have is called the Mobile IAM. It's a NAC product. And again, it allows you to set up network access rights dependent on who the person is, what the device is, conceivably what the time of day is, what the location is. And we integrate in with the smart web filters like iBoss so that we can extend that user profile right through to the web filtering and discriminate access rights, let's say, depending on the app they're using, who, time of day, about 40 different parameters there.
Great. We do a lot of implementation of iBoss throughout our customer portfolio on K-12, so it's a great tie-in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to touch on the E-rate in just a little bit. Let me, because I know we often get questions there, and what the federal government is putting $1 billion a year for infrastructure, for network infrastructure devices, and that includes access points, cabling, firewalls, network switches, routers. And people don't realize that applies to every school in the country. What varies, depending on the school, is that $150 per student. There's a discount factor that depends on the number of students eligible for the National School Lunch Program in the district and whether they're rural versus urban. But people should be planning that right away. It starts July. You put together a 5-year budget, and that really helps with the network infrastructure. Category 1 was the broadband connection itself, and now what's out there is the Category 2, the internet connection for the devices. And I do want to touch on products just a little bit here in the short time remaining, because what we're finding is so important is the Wi-Fi connection. And We show a picture here of Gillette Stadium, and that's not because we feel our K-12 customers have stadiums as complex as Gillette Stadium, but to make the point, if we can satisfy 68,000 fans at a football stadium, keep them totally happy, we'll keep everybody happy at your school districts. We now sell to the Eagles, the Jaguars, the Bengals, the Titans, and today we've announced that we'll be the Wi-Fi provider at the Seahawks. We are at Baylor University on the university market. We'll soon have NBA and NHL arenas. So they say if we can solve their problems, solving school district networks is no issue at all. So that's our 45 minutes. Should we?
Yeah, I want to be respectful. Go ahead and wrap that up from there. My last point, again, talking to our K-12 EDU market, is if you have any proof of concept coming down the pipe for this that you want to put in front of us at DurSec or anything involving extreme product line, again, we've been partnering with these guys for a few years, and a great company, great product offering. Just contact us, sales@dursec.com. We'd be glad to get that hooked up for you. But I'll let you kind of conclude, Bob, and wrap it up.
Okay, yeah, what I wanted to is just point out the resources are accessible from our K-12 solution page, and that's extremenetworks.com/K-12. All the resources plus more that I've talked about are there. And since we have the wired and wireless networks and network management and network analytics products. And just to conclude, did I do that right? Just quoting an educator, Ken Robinson, for most of us, the problem isn't that we aim too high and fail, it's just the opposite, aim too low and succeed.
Good point.
So I'll leave it there, Patrick.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. Again, any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be glad to get that answered. Thanks again for your time, everybody. Thanks, Bob.
Sure.